Okay, you have your NFL Week 17 prediction. So I'm coming off another solid week, but you have your first game, the Steelers versus Chiefs. I'm not going to be predicting this game since I'm currently filming this when the game is going on. But you have your other Christmas Day game, the Texans versus the Ravens. This one's going to be a good game. I have not been impressed with the Texans this year, especially losing Tank Dell. Their offense just hasn't looked consistent and hasn't looked dominant as we expected in the beginning of the year. That Texans defense is very, very good. However, I think the Ravens, they've been improving. They've looked better this past month. And I think the Ravens right now way more well-rounded. I don't trust that Texans defense or Texas offense, so I'm going to take the Ravens here. And you have the Bengals versus the Broncos. To me, this is a game that the Broncos should win. Their defense is much better than the Cincinnati Bengals. That Cincinnati Bengals defense is still a huge liability. That Bengals offense is pretty good, but like I said, they're going against one of the top five defenses in the Broncos, and that Broncos offense hasn't been bad this season. I expect a big game from Bo Nix. I think this one's. I just the Bengals defense is too much of a liability. I think the Broncos should get this game. And if the Chargers versus the Patriots, Chargers need this win to lock up the playoff spot, and the Patriots are tanking right now. I wouldn't be surprised if this was an upset game. The Patriots do play tough football, but I gotta take the Chargers here. They're just their talent alone should get this win. Then you have the Tank Bowl game, the Jaguars versus the Titans. Take your pick, whoever's worse. I don't know. I'll just take the Jaguars. They have home field advantage. Then you have the Bills versus the Jets, another very not very unimportant game, very boring game. The Jets, they're in rebuild mode right now. They're tanking. The Bills, they want to get the. They probably don't know if they have anything to play for in this game, but they'll win regardless. I'm gonna take the Bills here. Oops. And then you have the Dolphins versus the Browns. The Browns, similarly to like the Jags, Titans, Jets, they're also kind of vying for that number one pick. Browns do have big home field advantage, especially being December. Cleveland football is cold, but I believe they're going to be starting DTR. Their offense is not good. Their defense really isn't that good. Dolphins, even though they aren't great, they do beat up on bad teams. I'm going to take the Dolphins here. Then you have the Giants versus the Colts. Colts, they need this win to stay in playoff contention. The Giants, they want the number one pick. Even though I think as long as Anthony Richardson doesn't throw the ball more than 20 times and JT gets handed the rock, I think the Colts should win this game. Then you have the Saints versus the Raiders, another two very bad teams, both probably tanking at this point. The Raiders are more terrible than the Saints are. Take the Saints here, I guess. They have home field advantage. Then you have the Bears versus the Seahawks. Definitely an up potential trap game for the Seahawks. The Bears, their home field advantage. Their defense is not bad. Caleb Williams has looked better. Seahawks, I think their defense has been kind of hit or miss, but I do expect the Seahawks defense to play better versus a rookie quarterback. So I'm going to take the Seahawks here. Then you have the Cardinals versus the Rams. The Cardinals have all but given up after being eliminated last week. Their team just too inconsistent. The Rams usually play good versus the Cardinals outside early this year. I have the Rams. They're hot right now. Then you have the Falcons versus the Commanders. Um, Michael Penix is going to be starting for the Falcons, but Falcons, regardless, their team is just not that good. Like they players have been really disappointing. Their defense has been disappointing. Um, Penix wasn't great, wasn't bad last week. But I think Commanders, I think their defense has honestly played better than a lot of people are thinking about right now. Obviously, you got Jaden Daniels. I gotta take the Commanders here, especially on prime time. Then you have the Vikings versus the Packers. Packers and Vikings are both probably the hottest teams in the NFL right now. Packers, they've been playing dominating teams, while the Vikings, they beat the Seahawks. This one can go either way. It's a divisional game. However, I think Brian Flores' defense can cause Jordan Love to throw picks and make mistakes. So I'm going to take the Vikings here. Then you have the Buccaneers versus the Panthers. The Panthers are no longer a shitty team, or they're still shitty, but they play opponents tough. Buccaneers, they're coming off a loss against the Cowboys. This one's going to be a tight game, but I think the Buccaneers need this game more, so I'm going to take the Bucks here. Then you have the Cowboys versus the Eagles. Similar to the Panthers Bucks game, the Cowboys Eagles game is always going to be competitive. Cowboys defense has been playing better, but I do think if Jalen Hurts play, I think he's going to rebound and he's going to dominate a Cowboys defense that hasn't looked good throughout this year, although they have been playing better. I can't trust Cooper Rush against one of the best defenses. I'm going to take the Eagles here. Then we have the Niners versus the Lions. Even though both these teams are super injury riddled, but the Lions offense is still intact, so I'm going to take the Lions here. So there you have my NFL Week 17 predictions.